gonna make your childhood even better. First, Fred and Daphne from the original Scooby-Doo movies actually got married in real life and have 2 kids together. Next, Tom and Jerry are actually best friends, but Tom has to pretend to hate Jerry to protect him, because if Tom's owners figured out they're best friends, he would be replaced with a cat that would actually want to kill Jerry. Next, the house from Up is actually based on a true story, and it's super wholesome. Edith Mayfield lived in her farmhouse for almost 60 years, until lots of multi-billion-dollar businesses started to build around her house and they offered her millions to move out. But Edith always declined, so they just built around her, and the house is still standing to this day in Seattle. Here are some photos taken right before disaster. While traveling in Peru, Jared Michael stopped by some railroad tracks to take a selfie while a train passed. But it seems that Jared was a bit too close to the tracks, as when the train reached him, the conductor's foot gave him a pretty solid kick to the head. Thankfully, Jared ended up being okay. While Filipino politician Ronaldo Dagza was taking this photo of his family, he managed to also capture to the left the assassin that would end up murdering him right after the photo was taken. 3-year-old William Tyrell's mom was watching him and a couple of his siblings play outside when she quickly stepped back inside to get her phone. But when she came back outside, he was gone and has never been found ever since.
3, 2, 1.
You could have the ability to do this. About 8% of people can. This skill is called voluntary nystagmus, where your eyes move side to side so fast it looks like they're vibrating. If you want to find out how to do this, listen carefully. First, you need to hold your finger about a foot in front of you. Now bring your finger closer until it's almost blurry. At that point, shift your focus between your finger and the background behind it really fast. This will cause your eyes to shake. Let me know if it worked for you. When this father took a funny photo of his daughter, he had no idea it would end up saving her life. As he took a photo of his daughter on her first bath, he found her expression funny and posted the photo online. A lot of people made funny remarks, but there was one comment from a children's doctor that got the father's full attention. Are her eyes a little yellow? It looks like it to me. It's probably nothing, but it could be a symptom for neonatal jaundice. If her skin and eyes look a little yellow, then maybe you should get it checked out. The dad took this comment to heart and took his daughter immediately to the doctor. The paranoid comment of the doctor was confirmed. His newborn had jaundice, and the doctor probably saved her life with that one frightening comment. Here are some photos taken right before disaster. Maria de Hoya sadly passed away from tuberculosis at only 21 years old. During her illness, however, her doctor, Carl Tanzler, fell in love with her. And after she died, he kept her mummified body for 7 years until he was eventually caught and imprisoned. And this is her body when she was discovered. In Ukraine, a woman once got lost in the catacombs under the city after having a New Year's Eve party down there with some friends. She was never found until this group of teenagers stumbled across her body right here. This is the last photo ever taken of Uruguayan Flight 571 right before it crashed into the Andes Mountains. Those that survived the crash were forced to cannibalize the dead to survive until they were rescued 72 days later. This security camera video captures the terrifying moments about 75 recruits jogging in formation were struck by a Honda going the wrong way. The crash injured 25 recruits with injuries ranging from head trauma to loss of limbs. 5 are in critical condition, 1 even on a ventilator. It happened just yards away from a fire station, so help came quickly, but it was still chaotic. The driver still hasn't been identified. All we know is that he is 22 years old and that he passed a field sobriety test, but that doesn't completely rule out drugs. The official cause of the crash is still unknown, and unbelievably, Sheriff Villanueva believes it was a horrific accident, even though recruits say that they heard the driver accelerate around 30 to 40 miles per hour moments before the crash. Do you think it was an accident? What if I told you the Titanic never actually sank? So the owner of the boat, JP Morgan, actually had 2 boats, the Titanic and the Olympic. The Olympic was older and more run down and was also in an accident. So the theory states that JP Morgan sank the boat on purpose because he knew he would get a lot of money from the insurance policy. But why sink the newly built Titanic when you could just scratch off the paint, swap the names, and sink the Olympic instead? But it gets even worse when you read realized that JP Morgan's business competitors were also on the boat and not one of them made it out. And guess who wasn't on the boat? JP Morgan. He canceled just minutes before it left. And there was a man named James Fenton who worked on building the boat and survived the sinking. And on his deathbed, his last words were, "The Titanic never sank. It was the Olympic." And he said he was told that if he ever said anything, something bad would happen to him. This guy bit himself with a snake every day until something horrific happened. His name is Steve Ludwin, and he's turned himself into a real-life science experiment. When he was 17, he made it his mission to mutate his cells through snake venom. One day he bought a bunch of venomous snakes and started experimenting on himself by injecting the venom into his skin. At first, everything was great and Steve began feeling almost superhuman. He did this for 4 years until one day he got extremely sick. Steve was rushed to the hospital with a strange illness and was not expected to live. Doctors gave him a 1% chance of survival, and after 3 weeks of no improvement, his girlfriend did something drastic. She snuck into his hospital room and administered him Cobra snake venom. But little did she know that would change his life forever. Steve woke up and made a full recovery just hours later, and it has been reported that to this day, he's immune to snake venom and cannot feel pain. This man cheated death 7 times, but what happened next will shock you. His name is Franz Selleck, and when he was 33 years old, his train crashed into a river, killing 17 people, but he managed to survive. 1 year later, he was flying on an airplane when the plane doors blew open, and he blew out with it. All 17 passengers and crew would pass away in the crash, but against all odds, Franz survived by landing on a haystack. 4 years later, he was on a bus that plunged into a river, killing 4 people, but not him. Over the next 3 years, his gas tank would explode 2 separate times, but he escaped both incidents without any major injuries. Soon after that, while walking, he was hit by a bus, but survived with only a few injuries. But in 2003, his life changed forever. He went on to win $1 million in the Croatian lottery. He truly is the most lucky person ever. This security video shows Jeremy Griffin walk into a substance abuse treatment clinic with an AR-15. He quickly fires one shot at the wall and yells at Ronaldo Beckford, the unarmed security guard, to get on the ground. But Beckford immediately leaps towards the gunman and wrestles him into a corner, pins him up against the wall, and eventually drags him outside before other guards come to his aid. Griffin was arrested and charged with several felonies, including second-degree attempted murder, yet he has pleaded not guilty. But if it wasn't for Beckford, many lives could have been lost that day. Interesting as f***. A 9,000-year-old skeleton was found inside a cave in Cheddar, England, and nicknamed Cheddarman. His DNA was tested, and it was concluded that a living relative was teaching history about a half-mile away, tracing back nearly 300 generations. In 1996, Ukraine handed over nuclear weapons to Russia in exchange for a guarantee never to be threatened or invaded. This is a sped-up video showing 150 kilos, or roughly 330 pounds, of acorns a squirrel stocked up inside a transmitting antenna. This video shows a Boeing 747's wings during a flight. It shows how flexible the wings are in order to absorb turbulence and keep the plane stable. This is a photorealistic image of George Washington if he lived in the present day. This time-lapse shows a wound on a finger healing over the course of 33 days. These conjoined brothers who are attached at the hip do not want to be separated. Shivanath and Shivram Sahu are conjoined twins from India who are attached at the waist. The twins share 2 legs and 4 arms but have separate hearts and brains, and despite sharing a body, they actually live a pretty normal life. They're able to shower, eat, and dress themselves, and they even found out a way to ride their bike to school together. However, life is about to get a lot more complicated for the twins, as doctors say they can't actually be separated. If they tried to, the weaker one, Shivanath, would most likely die. Shivram, the stronger one, would most likely retain both legs and live a normal life, but the twins say even if they could afford the surgery, they wouldn't do it, because any challenge they face in life, they want to face together. The NFL has hired private investigators to stop this man because he has broken into the Super Bowl 35 times. And I promise you, you are not going to believe the Hall of Fame picture of him I show you at the end. The thing about Dion Rich is that he is a great talker. He has snuck into parties at the Playboy Mansion and met tons of famous people, including NFL players. So before Super Bowl 1, he found out where the bus was going to drop off the Kansas City Chiefs. He simply got there before them, put on a team jacket, and walked into the locker rooms. and he was hooked. After that, he snuck into almost every Super Bowl using disguises, until the NFL started seeing pictures of him at every Super Bowl, so they started to look out for him. No problem though, because he was friends with some Denver Broncos before Super Bowl 12. He got a ride with them and stayed on the sidelines. The Cowboys ended up winning, but they got this photo of Dion Rich carrying the Cowboys head coach. This woman did you-know-what with 919 men in one single day. Lisa Sparks set this record back in 2004 at the annual World Championships in Poland. She was competing against two other women, one of which was the current record holder who did you-know-what with 759 men in one day. But the craziest part is Lisa set this record in only 12 hours, meaning she only spent 45 seconds with each man. These videos show what lies underneath Disneyland, a sprawling and massive system of underground tunnels. One of the purposes of the tunnels is to keep the magic alive by hiding the characters when they're not supposed to be seen. Emergency vehicles also use the tunnels to get to their patient while trying to be unseen by the public so they don't kill the vibe. And here are some more things that Disneyland doesn't want you to know. For a long time, there's been a rumor that some of the bones on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride are from real human skeletons. In 2014, a rider asked an employee about the rumor as he was getting off the ride, and she said the skeleton sitting above the bed in the treasure room contains a real human skull. Disneyland strategically releases different scents all around the park through smellitizers, which look like speakers. The one they use the most is a vanilla scent, as it is scientifically proven to calm people down and make them hungry, so they spend more money on food. These are the saddest and most wholesome graves in the entire world. This grieving mother added a sandbox to her little boy's grave who had passed away unexpectedly, and now his older brother plays in it every single day. This is the gravesite of a boy who died of an incurable illness in 1865. A few hours before he died, he told his dad he was scared of death because he knew they were gonna bury him underground with no lights. So the parents honored his wish and put a window in his tomb. After her daughter died of yellow fever in 1892, a grieving mother wanted to make sure that her little girl was never alone. You see, her daughter was absolutely terrified of storms, so she constructed a staircase that goes directly down into her tomb. Every time there was a thunderstorm, that mother would go to the graveyard and sit with her daughter for hours, comforting her in her grave. This 24-year-old YouTuber convinced the world that he was Harry Styles. In February 2022, a mysterious TikTok account with the username Sumanella spawned with no profile picture or bio. The account only had a few videos and barely any views until it posted a video of a plaque from Spotify congratulating the singer Harry Styles on reaching 1 billion streams on his song Watermelon Sugar. Suddenly, Harry fans began to fixate on the account, with many convinced that the singer had set up a secret page to promote his next album. Fans pointed out that Harry was allegedly recently captured in paparazzi photos carrying a bag with a big Spotify box. These speculative videos amassed millions of views on TikTok, and the Sumanella page gained 700,000 followers in a few days. But the TikTok account did not belong to Harry Styles nor his team. 2 months later, 24-year-old YouTuber George Mason revealed that the Sumanella TikTok account actually belonged to him and everything was just a big catfish prank. Genius people who beat the system, part 16. This dad bet his daughter $100 that she wouldn't be able to get the ball from the wine glass into the small cup without being able to touch the ball, flip over the wine glass, or touch the small cup. So this is what she did.
That's not how busy. That's not even gonna.
A guy really wanted to have the high score on the arcade's basketball shooting game, but knew he couldn't do it legitimately. But that's when he realized that all he had to do was hit the bottom of the net and the game would think he scored. So he did that instead and got the high score. We all know that most dogs hate having their nails trimmed, but TikToker Lily Ford discovered that if she put plastic wrap and a spoonful of peanut butter on her head, she could distract her dog and easily trim its nails. Sad things you never noticed in Spider-Man No Way Home. In this scene, Tom's Peter doesn't mention Osborn's cure and puts it to the side. Because he doesn't want to cure him, he wants to kill him for what he did to Aunt May. When he slams it on the table, Toby immediately notices and says this.
Gotta cure all of them, right?
Right.
That's what we do.
You can see the conflict in Tom in this scene, and this is when Toby realized he had to keep an eye on Tom whenever Osborn showed up. This man got so fed up with people doing the nasty outside his house that he began filming them by setting up surveillance cameras on top of a light pole. His name is Marty, and he tracks everything he sees happening at the park outside his home.
I have seen and recorded probably 50-some sex events.
For example, this couple gets frisky out in the open for any passerby to see. Afterwards, they adjust their clothing and take off. These lovebirds climb into the back of their car, and as things get steamy, Marty, the neighborhood watchman, actually confronts them. This guy appears to be rolling a joint. Marty calls the cops and he's issued a warning.
I'm just a guy that is protecting my neighborhood and my family.
He says he videos everything to offer it to the police department to use as evidence against the people committing crimes. But the question is, do you think he's doing the right thing? This 76-year-old man saved the lives of all of his students from a school shooter, and the way he did it is so heroic. On April 16th, 2007, 76-year-old Dr. Labrescu was teaching his engineering class at Virginia Tech when all of a sudden, a shooter opened fire in the school and was about to burst into his classroom. But without hesitation, Dr. Labrescu, who was a Holocaust survivor, showed his courageous personality once again as he sprinted to the door and held it shut with his own body. He shouted out orders for his 22 students to kick out the windows and jump down to the first floor and escape. As all of his students made it to safety, Dr. Labrescu was shot 5 times through the door, including one to the head, which sadly killed him. The killer, named Cho Sang-hoo, killed 32 people that day before taking his own life. But the death total that day would have been a lot higher if it wasn't for Dr. Labrescu's heroic actions.